two areas that I wanted to focus on was really around change management. And that really speaks to whether or not the sales organization or the broader organization, if it's involved, is really ready to take a more structured, a more robust approach to account planning. And the reality is a lot of organizations aren't ready. And the sales operations team, the sales enablement team, or whoever it is who's advocating for that account planning process, they may be ready, they may have all of the prep done, but is leadership, is frontline ready for that level of structure and approach? And then the second part is, even if they are, do we have an effective governance process to sustain account planning, to drive the organization to meet its goals through a planning process? And so we'll get into a little bit more around each of these and some of the areas that we see, and we might kind of take some feedback from people in terms of what else they see. So some of the barriers that I typically see when I'm talking with clients about this is, when it comes to change management, do we have organizational alignment around an account planning approach, a key account management program? Is there clarity around what the scope is, what the timeline is, what the needs are? Are we able to get commitment of resources, right? And that goes for individuals who can actually drive this type of program, but it also means investment in terms of technology, or, for example, bringing in a partner on methodology training, and the fact that might be an ongoing requirement, or if you need to develop you want to develop your own methodology, do you really have the backing to do that type of thing, and how long term is that backing? A large part, a common area of friction that we see in a lot of organizations is having a clear strategy around account segmentation. So when you think about the actual structure of your account management program, getting agreement on what that looks like, what types of accounts fit into those profiles, and getting agreement not only within the sales organization but also with the marketing organization as well. And then probably the most important element of it is around executive sponsorship and executive active sponsorship, right? Because I think we've all experienced executive sponsorship in various different ways, right? There is, yeah, you definitely should do that, and then there's, a kind of real level of commitment. And account planning definitely needs the latter. It needs ongoing leadership from the top, and commitment. And that's usually a red flag if that's not there when it comes to being serious about the potential for an account planning program to succeed and be sustained. And then obviously tied to that is frontline manager and rep buy-in. We were just talking about that earlier on, and we might take a couple of minutes here to talk about that in terms of how do we build frontline manager and rep support for this type of thing, because it drives. There's obviously at the basic level there's a question of applying more of a structured approach, what that means in terms of account planning, account review, the discipline attached to that. But there's also then attached with a key account management program, there is structural change within the organization as well. There's rules of engagement, right? There may be a necessity to adjust compensation programs or individual compensation plans in order to drive the type of behaviors that you're looking for to make this type of thing work. And then within the particular team that's driving an account planning program, there's a need to develop a certain level of expertise, a certain level of gravitas, so that you can defend a program like this and its impact and its potential impact in the organization, right? Because to a certain extent, you don't want to become overly reliant long-term on third-party trainers. You want to be able to develop internal expertise. You may want to start to, over time, develop your own method for account planning that is really tailored to the needs of the business. And to do that, you have to develop some level of expertise, right? Anytime you're trying to embed more discipline onto a frontline that naturally likes to keep things a little bit, freestyle, You have to, your training, your rollout plan, your implementation plan has to factor in how are we going to get folks who don't want to do something different, right? Yeah. Ends up happening is that you have to do things like, a comprehensive review of the compensation program, right? Does it really fit with what your goals are for account planning? Do you have clear rules of engagement around, like if you're changing your key account management structure and you're putting in global account managers, and that changes the nature of what people can and can't do on accounts, then, you need a level of some guardrails around that to drive it. And you need to make sure that the compensation program is rewarding communal behavior, not just individualistic behavior, right? Collective behavior. Some of the things that we see, in terms of at the starting point is having a certain clarity around the business value of an account planning approach for all levels, right? All of the personas that you're targeting with an account planning program. So you mentioned frontline sellers, right? What's the business case for them, right? Individually, how will they benefit, right? How is it going to help them prioritize, take a more strategic approach, extract more value from the relationships that they have, spend less time on opportunities that are never going to go anywhere or accounts that are not going to scale to meet their target numbers or help them get to President's Club or whatever the particular motivation might be. But obviously as well, from an executive perspective, there needs to be a level of governance around, amongst the range of different initiatives that we could potentially drive within the sales organization. Why is this one going to make a difference in the context that we're in, where there's challenges to the business, there's challenges to profitability, revenue, etc. So, for a lot of organizations who are putting in account planning, their coverage model is still confused, right? It doesn't have, they may have hybrid sellers who are trying to do, new business acquisition and growing business, but, it tends to drive certain behaviors. It tends to drive them to the path of least resistance. And so having pretty, strong coverage strategy around who focuses on what types of sales motions, how do you motivate them differently, how do you compensate them differently, is something that you've got to really build into it to try and, get people working in the right way. One of the things that I wanted to talk about as well is frontline input to the actual process itself. A lot of these types of initiatives end up getting imposed on the front line, and whether it's technology, whether it's process, and there's a lot of cases where the organizations aren't really involving frontline sellers, frontline managers in the solution, so it becomes somebody else's solution, not necessarily their solution. So thinking about how you can bring them into that process, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Sales advisory councils or sales advisory teams are a pretty good way to have people who are enthusiastic about driving improvement in the sales organization, driving efficiency, productivity, and who are kind of willing to kind of commit to providing feedback and closing that kind of feedback loop between your operations teams, your enablement teams, and then the front line, so you're getting regular feedback on what's working, what isn't, not just in terms of the initial design, but the ongoing management of the thing and, the continued improvement of it.